everybody! Welcome to this mini movie review. Today's review is about 2021's The Advent Calendar. This is a French horror movie that just recently came out, I believe, on Shudder, which is where I'm going to watch it. So yeah, I heard about it recently and I thought it looked cool. I didn't know too much about it, but I looked into it. So it's basically, there's a woman who used to be a dancer. Her name is Eva. She ends up becoming paraplegic, so she can no longer dance or anything. I think she's in a wheelchair. And then for her birthday, which I'm going to guess is in December, her friend gives her a advent calendar. It's like an old wooden one, which sounds kind of cool. Like I have a wooden one with like the little, I guess I would have like the little drawers that you can pull the little surprises out of. But then each one she opens, it's like, I don't know, I guess it like sets up different things she can do and like maybe one day walk again. I don't know, but then some people gotta die. I don't know, something like that. I didn't look too much into it because I like to be surprised, but it sounds kind of fun. And yeah, so it runs 1 hour and 44 minutes. I will watch it in French subtitles, obviously. That's the way you want to do it. And yeah, I'm excited to check it out. So I'm going to go watch 2021's The Advent Calendar, and I'll be back to let you know what I think. Here we go. Like I was saying in the intro, there's a woman who is a paraplegic. That's what's going on. So it starts out, there's this woman named Eva, but she's paraplegic, so her legs don't work. Like her waist down is not working. So she's swimming at the pool, like getting her exercises in. And it's basically just like an intro of like how much her life has changed because this is a recent thing. It was within the like last 3 years or so that this has happened to her. You're not sure why yet, but she's swimming in the pool. Some guy's checking her out. He tries to hit on her, but then she's like, "Can you get my wheelchair?" And then I don't think it really threw him off. I mean, was maybe a little shocked, but then she's kind of like, "Yeah, that's what's up. You don't want to be with me because I'm injured or whatever." And then she leaves, and it's just like a whole thing of like she has to take special transport now because of her wheelchair and all these different things, and just it's left a lot of anxiety on her and just things that are changed in her house. She has this cute little kind of house that's out of the, I don't know, it's kind of like smacked in between all these stuff with like this little privacy fence. And I guess it had like a ramp. She has this dog though, which kind of has a decent part in the movie, but I do find it interesting that she has this dog that you never see her have to like take it for a walk. Not that you need to, but this dog's really low key. It's not even that excited when she comes home. She never has to deal with it when she first gets home. It's always just kind of around. So I don't know if it's like an indoor outdoor dog or what, but it really doesn't matter. But there's this dog too. It's very cute. It's like maybe like a pit mix or something. I don't know, kind of a bigger dog. So she's got this dog, and it's her and the dog, and she makes this phone call to her stepmother. I think, what's her name? Agnes, who I thought was amazing. She's a huge bitch, and you can tell just how she looks. She's got her hair. She kind of reminds me of the cartoon version of the evil stepmother in Cinderella, like the way her hair is, and she's got the hair like kind of curled up like little horns. So she calls her. They tell you that Eva's father has Alzheimer's, and he's just kind of like somewhat comatose, sitting upright in a chair in the same window for like the whole movie. And the stepmother's taking care of him, and she's just terrible. She's like, "You don't have to come see him, whatever." And it's kind of hard for her to go out there anyway because she can't get around as easily, and no one seems to be helping her. I don't know. It's just this whole thing. Her dad doesn't recognize her, and all this thing. So everything's just kind of a bummer. Eva also has this job. It's like a desk job working with like insurance, I think, selling insurance to people. And her boss is like kind of this weird caricature of like this gruff, big, bulbous nose type guy. Her boss is like, "I had to outfit this bathroom special for you, and that cost money." And all this stuff. Like, just like that, she's like this huge burden because she was in this accident. It's terrible. And so her life is kind of bleak. So then her birthday rolls around, and it's December 3rd. Like, that's when she made the phone call. I think she just wanted to speak to her father, and her stepmom was like, "He's not even gonna know it's you." Like, it was this whole thing. So her friend Sophie shows up, and I liked Sophie, or at least I really wanted to. It starts out where I was like, "Oh, that was nice of her." Like, she shows up to her house with some wine, showing up, like trying to have fun. Like, she was out of town. She apparently like goes to Germany a lot, and she travels around and stuff. So she shows up and she's like, "Hey, girl," and he was like, "Oh, that's nice." The dog is still just like, "Oh, hey, what's up? I'm a dog." she gets this gift from her friend Sophie. So she opens up this gift. I don't even know if it was wrapped. It might not have been. But it's this basically like one of the best parts of the whole movie is this advent calendar. And it's this wooden box with all these little doors that are like kind of different and intricate and carved into this box in different shapes. And you have to open each door with this little key that's at the bottom, like this old key. And I'm like, well, this is fun. So it's all this stuff, and it's in German. So her friend has to like translate it for her at first, which that ends up changing after her friend leaves, where everything she can, I don't know, I guess it's just the intro instructions. But this Germanic advent calendar is kind of threatening. It has all these words of like, don't get rid of me or I'll kill you. It's in German, so it says ich as for I. So they end up calling the creature Ich, I-C-H. There's this creature, this little thing that pops out of the top of the advent calendar that looks like a creepy man, and that's Ich. Maybe itch. I'm gonna say ick. So it's like, get rid of me, I'll kill you. Don't do the instructions right, I'll kill you. If you eat the first like there's little chocolates and stuff. Like if you start this, you have to finish it. And her friend Sophie's like, oh yeah, that's a little threatening. You know, like they're both just like, oh okay. And then you find out like later that Sophie stole it. That's what she says. But it's a neat gift. And so Eve was like, okay. So right away she's like, oh, that's neat. Let's mess with it. We got to kind of catch up. They're already on the third. She sees the instructions in the beginning about like if you start this, you have to finish it. So she eats one, and she gets this phone call from a phone that I don't even think is connected anymore. It's like a landline, and it's her father saying hello, and that he like remembered her birthday and was wishing her happy birthday. And she's like, what? Like she's like, I can't believe that, because her dad can't even really talk or remember her. And so she like keeps getting, every day she gets like these different chocolates or little like figurines or little things like that, and it changes her life. And every once in a while, she gets these little like white chocolate candies that are like baby Jesuses or something. And when she eats those, it kind of starts to make her feel like her legs can move again. And so she starts getting into this real quick. It doesn't take her long to be like, it's the advent calendar, which I thought was kind of interesting. She's just right away like, this is crazy. Things are changing with this advent calendar. And even this calendar is so excited for her to use it that as soon as it strikes midnight, it starts chiming and making noise of like, ooh, it's time to open. And it's like, it is just now midnight. Calm down. Like she has all day to open this box. One of the nights, her friend Sophie's like, hey, I know this guy and we're going to meet for some drinks. You should come with. She's like, okay. Turns out when she gets there, like, and you know, it's again another like point of view, like she's in a wheelchair, so she's down between like everyone's hips, and it's real loud and crowded here. And so she's like, hey, and there's this other guy with him. The other guy seemed a lot nicer. That was with the friend. Like apparently, I mean, I guess it was going to end up being kind of like a double date kind of thing. But somehow she ends up getting a ride home from the main guy, who's a bit of a douche. And because I guess like her friend who's her friend, Sophie's her friend, but she doesn't make the best choices. She like leaves her friend with this other guy who's a butt, and then takes the cute guy who like, well, it seemed nice to both of them, but still went with Sophie anyway, which I thought was weird. I kind of thought him and Eva hit it off a little better, but anyway, they end up splitting up, and she lets her friend, who's paralyzed from the waist down and can't run away, go with this guy that they just met. She's like, he'll give you a ride home, and she's like, okay. And so she gets in the car. You know, she's been running around all day. She's tired, and he's giving her a ride. He ends up not taking her to her house yet. And then she falls asleep, and when she wakes up, he's got his hand in her pants, and he's touching her. And she's like, whoa, what are you doing? You know, they're just like parked on the side of the road. And he's like, oh, I thought you were into it because you weren't doing anything. And she's like, I can't feel from the waist down. She's like, I did not know. What are you doing? And this guy was being such an ass. And then he's just like, oh, you know, it's okay, it's okay. And he's like trying to get her to perform oral sex on him. It was a really like rough scene where you're like, okay, this guy's terrible. So she fights him back, and he gets mad and dumps her out of the car with her wheelchair next to her near her house. And I'm like, I would have told my friend the next day, but she sees her friend the next day at this park, and she never like mentions it. So what happens is when she gets dumped out of the car, she says drop dead. And I guess in a way she like gets a wish granted by the advent calendar, and it opens up, and there's a little tiny model of the Jeep he's driving, which I thought this part was kind of fun. And it comes out, and the dog comes up and looks at it, and the dog starts beating up this little model car. And while he's doing that, it's beating up the car that the guy was in. So he dies. So the next day when Eve's at the park, and Sophie's like, hey, did you hear that guy died? And she's like, what? That's crazy. And then she starts kind of, like I said, really quickly putting all this together. She's like, yeah, it's the advent calendar. And she starts writing all the notes that she's thinking in her head on this desk which I was like, that's going to come back to bite you because I know someone's going to see this and think you're crazy. And she's trying to figure out what each candy or whatever trinket she's getting is doing. And she easily just eats all this stuff. Like, you don't know where this advent calendar came from. She's like, oh, this candy that could be ecstasy or something. She whoop just pops it in her mouth. And so she meets this guy at the park after she finds out about the other guy dying, and she thinks he's cute. And he's just kind of like running along, and he sings to himself while he jogs on his, like he's listening to music. And he's handsome, and stuff. And he's running around and doing things. And then one day in the little box, or like a few days later or something, in the little box of the advent calendar, she gets this little heart trinket, and I guess it's like a candy. And she kind of puts two and two together, and so she ends up slipping it in his drink at this cafe, this outdoor cafe. And so he ends up falling for her. And at first he's like not really sure why, but it's not like obsessively. Because at first I was like, oh my gosh, is he gonna stalk her? But no, and they get on well, and she starts, they kind of fall for each other a little bit, not too hard, like just really good friends at first. He is a nurse at a hospital, and she starts realizing that these little white chocolate baby Jesuses are making her where she can walk, because she takes them and kind of like seizes a bit and then like blacks out, and then she's in another place without her wheelchair. And so she ends up doing this at the hospital to show him. She's like, I'm telling you, these things are making me walk. So then she takes it there while she's with him, and she ends up being able to feel her legs. Like he's touching her legs. She's like, I can feel it. And then they kiss. And so now they're like kind of a thing. This is all within like a couple weeks. So like her friend Sophie had left, had to go back to Germany or whatever for 2 weeks. So all this stuff is happening. Everything's getting crazy. And eventually she's realizing that at the end of this advent calendar, she'll be able to walk again. But there's rules, stuff like that. So it's all these different things that she's got to do. At one point, she has to kill her dog, which is a bit rough, but I think it was done well. And then you find out that her friend Sophie is the one who caused her paralysis. They were in a car accident together. Sophie was driving, trying to take a selfie or something while they were driving, and they had an accident. So Sophie feels really guilty about this, but then she's still not really that great of a friend. I don't know. Part of me was like, maybe she'd be a little more considerate. But then Eva also never wants to talk about the accident. And so things start coming to a head towards the end. The guy that she was kind of with finds out that some weird stuff's been going on with this and the advent calendar, like he kind of believes it. So he's mad at her. And then the ick comes and kills him. There's this scene where she is like losing her mind. So her friend Sophie and that other guy that ended up running off with Sophie from the first date, the one that I thought kind of liked Eva more, but they end up at this cabin. The guy had a cabin, like a hunting cabin, and she's like freaking out in the other room. And even then, she's like, okay, Sophie's like, okay, good night. And then she goes in the other room and she tries to have sex with the other guy, and the other guy's like, your friend is in the other room losing her mind. And she's like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman is kind of a little bit terrible. She took one of the candies or whatever from the advent calendar. She takes it, and I'm pretty sure what it is he like almost bangs her to death. It was something about the candy, like something happened. She came out of that bedroom and she was like all torn up, and he was like torn up, and then it comes and kills them. It was all this thing, and so they're dead. Her dad ends up dying. She ends up setting it up too so that Agnes dies, the stepmom too. It's like all these people around her are dying, which eventually I'm like, someone's gonna catch on criminally wise, but okay. So everyone in her life is dying. There's the guy from the swimming pool comes back around. He seems to be nice. She ends up hooking up with him at the hotel on like the last night of the advent calendar. So it's Christmas Eve, which I was a little confused because I guess because there's one more box for the 25th and she didn't open it. It felt like there was only 24 days, but I guess there's 25 and she didn't open the 25th, which technically you only have to go up to the eve of Christmas according to the rules. So it just seemed a little odd at first. So like she also found this guy who had a family. He was blind. He was the previous owner of the box. He left like a clue in the box. The blind guy was supposed to have killed his family and he would have got his sight back or something like that. And he was an artist, so it was like a big deal. But he didn't do it. Or like he went all the way through and then like reversed it and you forget. So like, but the thing is like whatever is ailing you, you'll get this advent calendar and then you go through all the motions, killing whatever, in your path, seeing exactly what you would do to fix your problems. And then at the end, if you take the last candy or whatever on the 25th, it'll reverse everything back. Everyone comes back. I don't think you really remember. And so the guy she ends up hooking up with from the swimming pool at this hotel points that out to her. And she's trying to, because she really wants to walk again, and she seems to be fine, I guess. So they're just like, you don't have to eat that last candy. And she's like, that's true, I don't. And then she puts like her own message or like video or something in the box to like warn people that this is, what this is and things like that. And yeah, and then it just kind of ends. So you really don't know what she decided to do, which I thought was a bit of a disappointment. Like, not, I kind of wish I would have known a little bit. I think it would have, I mean, part of me figures she's gonna not do it. I would guess that she decided just to walk again because I think she really, really wanted to walk again. And her dad had already told her like it was fine if she had to sacrifice him. So I mean, it was a little more like creature paranormal than I thought it was gonna be, but I liked it. There was a lot of fun things to the movie. I think they could have gone a little more into some of the things. Maybe it seems like they kind of like skimped a bit. Like she even lost like 4 or 5 days taking this little candy that looked like a clock and just made her pass out for like 4 days. So then she ended up losing her job because of that 'cause she didn't show up to work. There was like a neat scene where there was this other chick who like took her job and she like made it to where it was almost like a voodoo doll thing where she made like all her bones break in the bathtub or something. I mean, there were some good parts in there and it was cool and I like it kept me interested in things. I thought it was neat. I liked the different things she had to do and everything. I just wish the ending would have kind of been a little more concrete. I thought it was really unique and creative to have this like killer advent calendar. I'm just not sure if I needed like the ick this guy thing chasing after her necessarily. So I mean I would recommend it. Let's see, I'm gonna rate it out of Baby Jesuses. So I would give it 6 out of 10 Baby Jesuses for 2021's The Advent Calendar. 6 out of 10. Check it out. I watched it on Shudder. It's really fun. Thank you for listening to this mini movie review.